Okay, according to my cell phone, it's 4:15. We'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for coming this afternoon. Last time we went really long. My goal is to be done in 2 hours. I think that's realistic and we can do it. Before we get started, I want to introduce a new member of our team. Bridget Blevins is the new Director of Communications. Came kind of in the middle of October. What day was it, Bridget?
October 24th.
Kind of the end of October.
Yes.
October 24th, so she'll be in that official capacity for us as note taker and all around good person. At each of your spots when you came in, there was a sheet just with a definition of negotiation. I just ran across this. I thought it was a good definition, and we're kind of getting into that season pretty close, just to kind of frame what the negotiations hopefully will look like. I do want to stress again with United SJSD piece of it, you guys are an advisory group, advisory in nature. In terms of the actual negotiation, that will be done with the 4 teacher reps and the board representatives. So again, we are hopefully going to chew through all this information, weed some of it out, give good information to the negotiators who will then take that next step with it. Okay? I think I've sent the minutes from October 13th to all of you. Did anybody have any questions or concerns about what they saw there? There were some date changes that Donna made on the last one I sent out. She had 2017 a couple of times when it should have been 2018. That has been changed. Anyone have other things that they have questions about? If I could get a raise of a hand if you're in favor of approving the minutes. All right, minutes approved. Insurance benefits update and discussion. Just wanted to stress to you how thankful I am and hopefully how you guys understand that it's a really unique and good thing that we get a 6-month renewal with absolutely no increase to anything. Same policy, same plan, same premium. That's very unusual. So I think we're very fortunate there. Some of you attend the board meetings, some of you don't. If you have an opportunity to come to the board meeting next Monday, our representative from J.W. Terrell is going to be giving kind of a self-funding 101, I think is what they termed their presentation. The board's looking at that as an option for the period starting with July 1/17, going through June 30/18. So I'd encourage you to come to that if you want to hear that presentation. It should be very informative. It's a pretty complex situation, and I think they do a great job of explaining it. So if you want to learn more about the potential for self-funding, please come to the board meeting. Well, you're always welcome at the board meetings, but that would be a topic we'll be digging into real soon. So, any questions or comments about the insurance? Now, everybody understands the no premium raise, no same plan, same everything is for the period from January 1/17 through June 30/17, right? Okay, great. Anything else on that? All right, moving along to the calendar discussion resolution. You have, I sent you the 2 calendars. They both have draft across them. We did a lot of work, and thank you for the work that we did in the United SJSD group that then went to the negotiations process. There were some, what I think are fairly minor changes made to it. I just want to point those out to you. If you look at the one that is the school calendar, school day calendar, the 3 major changes are graduation was changed from May 13th to May 20th. And there was a big concern about if we had any significant number of snow days that they wouldn't have enough hours to meet the graduation requirement, to meet the requirement for credits. So that got pushed from the 13th to the 20th. There was 1 student day removed. Remember, our previous calendar had school ending on Monday the 21st, and we had looked at a bunch of ways to avoid that and really couldn't. The way that happened was instead of 170 student days, there are going to be 169, and so that moved the end of school from May 21st to May 18th. And then there was to keep the 181 teacher contract days, on August 9th, a teacher workday was added. So that's where the extra day went. From the 21st of May, which would have been the last day of school, that became a workday, a teacher workday on August 9th. Okay? And I believe that is the only, those are the only differences to the calendar. Did I get that right? Those of you who are in
We
the...
backed up the beginning too, yeah.
Right.
We did that in
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that was done in here.
and on here.
here. Yeah, we did that at the day of the meeting.
Yeah, we
Okay.
just added the night.
Because the start date was
Yep.
the 16th.
So any questions about the calendar? Okay, good. The other calendar then, the 260 workday calendar, the only difference at all to that from what we talked about, it was the graduation date change, which really doesn't affect the 260 work calendar, but it is noted on there. Okay, so that was moved from the 13th to the 20th.
And then in July, we'll
Okay.
go back to,
Right.
is that right?
Yeah, and then I can't remember what spot we were at in our negotiations here, or in our discussions here. The proposal will be, that's going to the board on this calendar, is that the months of June and July will be 4-day work weeks for 260 staff, with the exception of any weeks that have a holiday in them, which that would be the first week of, well, the July 4th week, looking at the top in July 2017. That would be a 5-day work week. You have the 2 holiday days, and then you would have 3 regular length days on the 5th, 6th, 7th. And then the first week of June, because you've got Memorial Day, May 28th, June 1st would also be a normal length work day. So you'd get either 8 or 7.5 hours of holiday pay on the 28th. The other 4 days that week would be whatever your normal work week or work day is. If it's 7.5, you'd have 7.5s. If it's 8, you'd have 8s. Okay? Any questions there?
On that calendar, it's for 260-day staff. Does that include certified as well as non-certified? Because I've had some questions from members who are teachers, they're certified teachers, but they are 12-month contracted employees. Does that apply to them, or who does this calendar specifically apply to?
Yeah, well, it says at the top, it's the central office administrators, the high school principals, and the supervisors.
So that's it. So we haven't done anything with any of the other calendars.
No.
Okay.
No, because theirs is different because some of them have 12-month classes. I mean, it's round so Hilliard calendars are different, yes.
Okay. How are they developed?
Once we get the bones of this hammered out, that'll be the next.
Cool.
We would talk to Dr. Merritt to find out who has different length calendars. Some of their programs are the 181, just like the others, but a lot of them are different, and they're all over the board. So I think we have like 15 different Hilliard calendars.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of them.
It's just been requested to me that we do have the chance to look at those to make sure
Sure.
that any positive updates that are made with the traditional 9-month, 181-day and 260-day, that the others that fall in between that we also have a chance to look at theirs and
Right.
make sure that everything's kind of congruent.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, anything else on the calendars?
So I had a question from the administrator, was Christmas and spring break for 12-month employees, will it be optional as unpaid for secretaries if they choose? So I couldn't remember what we decided on last time with that.
Well, that really is going to be,
That's what we,
yeah, I think, if I remember correctly, our discussion from last time, an employee always has the option to take off days unpaid.
Okay.
What they have to weigh when they do that is am I doing this in an excessive manner? Have I gotten the approval of my supervisor?
Okay,
And I think as long as their supervisor has approved it, that
it would be
fine.
okay.
Would that be something we could get out to the principals or supervisors, just telling them that we talked about those 3 options? Because They're just kind of taking my word that I said we did this, and they're like,
That's probably
I
the
know
best
that.
thing.
You know what I mean? I have no authority, so sure you do. I think maybe it might
That
be.
way if something goes wrong, we can make you the scapegoat.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll try to get something out to the
That'd be great,
principals.
thank you.
And you always have the option of taking a vacation day as well, right?
Right.
Yeah. we can do
Absolutely.
vacation or the-
Yeah, I probably won't do that, Julie, until the next K-12 meeting, so
Sure.
I've got them all together then, and I'll just talk to them. Then that would be in December sometime. Other questions or concerns? You guys are easy today.
Well, you addressed it already in K-12 about getting the skeleton calendar made for
Right.
the elementary principal, so we got that.
Yeah. The question we talked about at the K-12 meeting today was the folks that are on 211, 221, once the board, hopefully there'll be an approval of a calendar Monday night, and then we can sit down and count. You know, everybody will have either still their 211 or their 221. Sometimes there's a day or two latitude of where they start and end, but we'll get that hammered out as soon as we know what the bones look like.
Dr. Kraus, you've got the new Teacher Institute, August 1 through 3. Is there any way we could move that 2 to 4 for August? I think that having it on the 1st is going to run into the same problem we had this year with the state conference.
Okay?
What conference?
The, right,
Oh, that's right, that's why they weren't there. That's a good point.
okay. Do you know for sure when that conference is?
I will research it, how's that?
Say
Okay.
it's probably
Let's
already
research
posted, isn't it?
Yeah, it
What's
probably
this
is.
checking?
Is that the Massa one? Is that the Massa one?
Yeah, I mean, that would be,
Last weekend.
be pre-service, pre-service days. I think we could move those if we needed to.
Okay.
Non-concerned, yeah. You better have principals there.
Yeah.
Also gives elementary principals a day back to work before new Teacher Institute.
Okay. What I would like to do, if it's okay with everybody, had a couple of people, guest speakers come in that wanted to give us some more detail on their additional items requests, and I'd like to let them have an opportunity to speak, and then we'll let them go, and then we'll jump back. Is that all right with everybody? Okay. Dr. Lau, I know that you have another obligation. So Dr. Lau is talking to us about, let's find it here on the,
Assessment coordinator.
yeah, I'm not seeing it, I know it's on the assessment coordinator position that was,
Did you find it, Wes?
oh, it's called coordinator for assessment. It's about 2 inches up from the bottom. Coordinator for assessment.
And I know coordinator is a
July
term,
30th.
you know, that we've changed a little bit in this district, so
That's what I thought.
probably
Was that
more along the lines of what we now know as an advisor, so just to clarify. Many of you know Nancy Rohr, who's in our department in assessment. A lot of people have talked to Nancy, and she's wonderful, but we are gonna be losing Nancy this year. She's gonna be retiring. And so over the course of time, Nancy has taken on a role that really isn't even classified as administrative assistant. She is a tech specialist, and so she does a lot of technical things for us in our department. And honestly, she does a lot of educational things as well. Nancy's very smart, she's very helpful. If you've ever talked to her, you know that. I don't need to sing her praises. We're sorry we're losing her. But in her role, it would be great if we took that role and elevated it somewhat to this role, because it would be a more substantive role. Right now, we have acuity specialists. A lot of you guys know about acuity specialists. So those are folks that are out in buildings. And that model is one that we'd really like to retire. And so in conjunction with the fact that we already have this role, we're going to be retiring a role that does come with dollars attached to it. We think that the combination of those two things could result in this assessment advisor position. And one of the main advantages of that, outside of the things I've already talked a little bit about, is that that allows us to have assessment folks out in buildings more. Right now, there's one of me, in our department, and yet we have a lot of data literacy, things that we certainly need to continue to address, assessment literacy, certainly being at the job embedded table as we bring on new data systems is hugely helpful. And I think that especially the folks that are doing the iReady pilot right now would certainly concur that it's very, very helpful to have folks at the table that have a solid understanding of those systems and what that means for their instruction. And so that's just it, everything in a nutshell. I'm trying to be brief. I will give Dr. Krause certainly the job description that we've used to kind of frame in this particular position. But again, we've already got a substantive role with Nancy. We have a substantive role with the acuity specialist, so tying that together, really deploying something that's a little more powerful through the assessment department.
Okay, so if I heard you correctly, then if we had this position with those duties, it would take the acuity specialist off the additional pay rates?
Yes.
Just for your information, I just approved these, so I happen to remember the number. We paid out $10,000 to acuity specialists.
And that number was a little bit reduced this year because of iReady. So because we're piloting in that school. So typically it's 16,000.
Questions for Dr. Lau? All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank
So
you.
this is 15,000 in addition to a certificated teacher, or
No, that's in addition to what we're paying now.
what are we paying now?
You have to probably investigate that a little
I
further.
don't know the exact.
I'm just curious.
There's only one, and so we would need to set that.
Leah Schmidt is our Director of Nutrition Services. She'd like to talk with you about a couple items.
Yes, I have two requests, actually. The first is for an assistant director for nutrition services. I can provide you with numbers for other districts of comparable size to us, and all of them have an assistant director to help run the department. And we actually have more sites. I've looked at Park Hill and at Liberty particularly. They have about the same number of students, but they only have 17 schools versus 24. And we have 150 staff and they have about 110. So there's a lot more administration that goes into running St. John's, Park Hill, and Liberty's of the world. In addition, I'm eligible for retirement May 1st. So I will be leaving probably around the end of December, retiring. So for succession planning, it's a very important thing for us to have somebody there that can continue with our department. The other position that I've asked for is an assistant manager at Central High School, which is our biggest high school, as you all well know. It's about twice as big as the other two high schools as far as production and all of the things that they do there. And this would be a training position so that if we have a manager that retires, which right now about 20% of our managers will be eligible for retirement within the next 3 years. So it's really important for us to have somebody trained and ready to go in that. And I don't know if it's a unique situation, but in the past year and a half since I've been here, we've had an occasion to use an interim manager because of a long-term illness or a vacancy that happened. And we were very fortunate to be able to find people that could fit in those roles. But to have somebody ready to go and hit the ground running would be very, very beneficial to our department. Any questions?
So Leah, that would be, you have the director, that's what, 96? Or what is it, the director's position now? General Director of Nutrition Services.
Well,
She's looking for an assistant.
Oh, you're looking for an assistant
assistant,
addition.
yeah, it's the 60,000.
So that'd be a new position,
That would be a new position.
It's 62.5.
62.5.
That one's 3 below the middle of the page, kind of 3 below the last blue line, 4.
And actually, with the assistant manager, I'd be eliminating a 7-hour position at Central, because that person would be a hands-on person there doing what a 7-hour person would do. So really, the only additional expense there would be about $5,000
For the central position.
for the Central position, yes.
And that's closer to the bottom.
Yeah.
So what would be the difference in duties for an assistant manager at Central versus the person that's already?
They would actually be in the learning, they would be in charge when the manager wasn't there, but they'd also be in a learning capacity with the manager, learning how to do the production records and the ordering and even approving payroll and that kind of thing.
So with the assistant director, I mean, is that just something that you're just overwhelmed and you need someone to?
We are less staffed than any other department in the area. And we do different things too. We run a full-service warehouse. A lot of these districts actually have a lot of their deliveries going directly to the school, where we're kind of hands-on, so that requires a lot of additional administration. It saves us money in the long run because we have one drop shipment, and so our pricing is very good, but it requires a lot more hands-on.
So they would assist with the warehouse also?
Well, right now, we have a field supervisor, but she's tied up a lot there, and I'd like to be able to give a little more hands-on out in the schools. So this would provide us the opportunity to be a lot more present in the schools where we can provide technical assistance for them.
So you're anticipating that we would be keeping the field service person as well?
Correct.
Any other questions for Leah? Leah, if you have information that you would like me to disseminate to this group, send it, email it
I
to
will
me,
do
and
that.
I'll get it out to you.
Staffing comparisons, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim McKay is our Director of Technology. Would you like to speak to you? The tech one's right under the second orange, kind of toward the middle of the page there. Go
Hi,
ahead.
everyone. I think I put down 3 positions. Those 3 positions, one would consist of an additional position to help our communication specialist, which is the gentleman that does our phones, our security system, security cameras, door access, smoke alarms, all that type of stuff. That position, we had a gentleman move on a year and a half ago, and that position was now fulfilled. At that time, we had such influx in the HR department that it just never got refilled. So that would be one of the positions in my department.
To refill.
The second position would be to help our bench tech out with the amount of repairs that we're having with Chromebooks, just regular devices too. It's not necessarily just the Chromebooks, but did some numbers today. As of today, since May 16th, he's worked on 1,446 devices. So that's quite a bit. And we've had to pull a part-time person over to try and help him alleviate some of that stress and anxiety. And it's not getting us to where we need to be as far as turnaround on repairs on devices and stuff like that. We'd like to
Is he
move that
working
side.
overtime?
He has worked some overtime, yeah.
And you've got a substantial backlog just almost consistently?
We're anywhere from a week to 2 weeks behind now. And some of it's not necessarily there, it's also part supplies that we're having some issues with. Trying to outsource parts has been somewhat of an issue too. We're talking devices that are 3 years old, so you get to that life cycle where it's difficult to try and support those.
So we currently have one person working.
We have
on-
1.5, I should say, we have a
1.5.
part-timer that's helping us too, yeah. So,
No disrespect to the part-time person.
no, he's, and you know, he's not as qualified as Bobby is, but the simple tasks he can handle. So. The last
Let's be
position.
careful about talking about personnel here.
Pardon?
Let's
Yeah,
be careful about
let's don't-
talking about particular personnel here.
Don't name anyone, please.
Thank you.
The last position would be to help alleviate some of the issues at the middle school where we could have a full-time tech at the middle school where right now the tech has to split between the 2 middle schools. We've got 4 middle schools, so we got 2 techs doing that, and it seems like we have a lot of issues at the middle school, so we'd have to make some adjustments and move some people around, but with an additional staff member in that area, we could help out, especially with the one-to-one.
Does student safety devices one have a tech unit?
Yeah, it does. It does. They get a little more wear and tear, and that definitely is an issue. You know, if they stayed in school, we might see decrease. How much, I really don't know, to be honest with you.
So you weren't budgeted for a phones and security person this year, but you want to refill that position that you budgeted for this year?
I would like to, yes.
Would it be an increase or about the same amount as before?
it'd probably be a decrease
Wow.
in pay, just because the gentleman that left probably was a 4 or 5 year with us at the time, so he would come in at that entry level, obviously, unless he has abundance of experience. But in that position, what I'd like to do also is have that position trained to also help our AV guy also, so that we kind of have 3 guys that might be able to rotate, because right now those 2 guys, they have no backup, and so if there's any issues, they're pretty much it.
So if you had to prioritize 1, 2, 3, which one would be the most important and least important?
The communication, for sure, just because of some of the safety issues too.
And then your least,
Pardon?
which one would be least important?
Probably the building tech
Okay.
at the middle school level.
Any other questions for Mr. McKay? Tim, again, if you have something you want me to send out, email it to me and I'll get it out to the group then. All right, thank you. Are both of you ladies, all 3 of you ladies speaking?
I'm not, Gina is.
Okay. Gina, you want to come on up? Gina Villegas is over the ESOL program. We want to make sure we can get you on the camera, Gina.
Thank you. Okay, so I know on the list it has 3 ESOL teachers listed and 1 bilingual para. As a department, we are requesting 1 full-time ESOL teacher, but Central is also requesting an ESOL teacher, and so is Coleman. We are also requesting a bilingual paraprofessional for Benton High School. For the department request of 1 ESOL full-time teacher, that would be to be placed at Scaife and Parkway, because we have 2 teachers who are there now. One of them has 4 buildings she's servicing, and the other one has 5 buildings. So the idea would be to reduce the number of trips those teachers are making, and also to allow more time in case we would have new students or if our current students need additional services. So that would be the full-time teacher position that we are requesting as a department. On the bilingual para, that would be for Benton High School. Benton currently has 21 ELLs, but they have high needs ELLs at that school. And so they have 1 full-time ESOL teacher, and so she's trying to do it all. She's trying to teach the ESOL classes and also push into the math and the science classes, where if we have a bilingual para, that bilingual para would then push into the math and the science and the other content areas to provide support, and the ESOL teacher would have more time to offer more blocks of English should we get more students at Benton.
Do you know kind of an average of our increase yearly of those?
This year, our number and increase looks around like 40 students. Typically, we have an increase between 60 students of ELLs, so it's lower than we've had in previous years. However, we've gotten more students who are non-English speaking high school age students who have an interruption in schooling, meaning they may have completed 7th grade in their native country, and now they're here and they are in 9th grade. So they have higher needs.
I want to put you on the spot, Gina. You said 1 was a department request and the other 2 for teachers were from schools.
Yes.
I always get coordinator or supervisor mixed up. As the head of ESOL, do you feel like their caseloads justify the additional teachers at those 2 schools?
I do feel like they are valid requests at both of those schools, but if we would have to prioritize, I would have to choose the ESOL teacher for the 9 schools that would help reduce that load, and then the bilingual para.
Any questions anyone would like to ask?
So those are 47.5 each.
Okay. Anytime I put a number down, that's a guess. You know that, Todd.
Right.
What it assumes is 5 years of experience, and then you figure in for teachers, what do we figure, 15% extra for benefits? So that's a shot in the dark. If somebody comes in with 20 years of experience, it's going to be more. If they're brand spanking new out of college, it's going to be less. That's the approximate cost for someone with 5 years experience. So those are going to vary.
So you said one was for the department, and what were the two schools, Coleman?
Coleman and Central.
Other questions? All right, thank you very much, Gina. Denise Kohlhauer, Director of Special Services.
Thank you. My purpose this evening is to draw your attention to a district need for school psychologists. St. Joe's School District does not have even one school psychologist. We are a large district with 1,800 approximately students with disabilities. The benefit of having school psychologists, it's very broad, but I've narrowed it down to 9 points I would like you to consider that we could use their knowledge. These are going to be master level professionals. At the foundation, they would be providing testing and evaluations for students with or suspected areas of disability. There is a need in our district for highly trained staff to provide cognitive assessments and to look at behavior rating scales. We need, although our staff we have now have had those individual graduate level classes, I would like to see some staff on board that have a greater depth of knowledge in terms of adolescent and child development, child psychology. Also, they can then interpret data for our buildings in terms of psychological reports we get, mental health reports, medical reports, and reports from outside agencies. We're seeing an increase in students with mental health needs, and we need someone skilled that can look at those assessments. When a student is exited from maybe residential care or counseling care, they will come with a transition plan. I think it would be a benefit to have a school psychologist to review those with your staff. Also, a school psychologist can help us with crisis prevention, intervention, and response. In case of an emergency, threat of suicide, following a student suicide, it would be important and a benefit to our staff and families and our students to have someone trained in that area. A value added to having school psychologists, in order to become certificated, must act as an intern. I'm finding our suburban league friends have really pushed out their names to the universities to get psychologists to come to them to act as interns. We can't even access that opportunity to build our staff without at least one school psych. So if we could get 1 or 2 school psychs, then we could seek out interns and we could start growing our own and maximize our opportunity for services to students. I think you all know as educators, we just need assistance with behavioral and emotional needs of our students. We need someone overseeing and helping direct safety plans, behavior intervention plans, and something I would like to see that we're unable to do right now are risk assessments of students. A risk assessment is when a child appears to be in crisis or they've had an incident that resulted in a behavioral consequence at school. We need a trained staff member to do a risk assessment. What level of risk does that student pose to themselves, to other students, to staff, to the safety and culture of the building? A school psychologist could be a help to us with that. They would also be participating in observations of students as part of just the tiered support system of what can we do first. So I am seeking for a district this size. It'd be very appropriate for us to have 2, and that is what I'm requesting is 2 psychologists. Once we get them on board, then we would follow through with looking for interns to assist them as well.
So would they be housed outside of a school or is there schools that you would think that they could have their office space in and from there? Or how do you see logistically that would work?
The supervision would come from myself or Marlena Wally. Well, if they were approved, I think we could do some simple measures to determine which buildings have the greatest need. We could look at discipline referral rates, we could look at our health records, where are our highest number of students with mental health needs, and then prioritize that way. So at this point, I'm not ready to say they will be only in 4 or 5 schools. I do see as a district level, we have a great need for just that knowledge, and we probably could use their help in even determining how best to utilize them and facilitate some of these resources that I'm seeking for our students.
Will doing something like this alleviate any third-party provider costs that we're currently incurring?
No,
Okay, so we're not contracting or have anybody on retainer or anything outside of the district as a third-party provider for any of this type of?
no, do not.
How would this role mesh with what the process consultants do now? How would that work?
It would mesh closely. Right now, either our process consultants or active retirees who have the necessary credentials are doing our cognitive assessments. We would like to see our process consultants providing more instructional support, basic behavioral intervention support, helping our SPED teachers with classroom management, IEP goal writing, and of course being the in-building compliance officers. A school psych brings a greater depth of knowledge regarding the interpretation and application of the information gained from cognitive assessments. It would dovetail nicely.
Any other questions?
So I heard you want to build a site. Is that the priority here? I mean, would one work to build an initial site and then eventually bring 2 on board?
We would be, since we have none, one would be a beautiful thing. 2 would get us to, I think, a point where we can meet the needs of a district this size. One person, my fear with bringing on one is we're going to have to really prioritize and limit how they spend their time. You cannot, one person can hardly do K-12 in a district this size with the depth of need we have. I'd rather kind of launch it and do it right the first time with 2, but honestly, any help you could bring for mental health needs will be used. We just don't want to turn a full-time position into an 80-hour-a-week position, trying to make them do the work of 2 people.
Do you really think you would really be able to get someone for 80,000, or is that going to be a challenge?
I think that would be commensurate to what our suburban league is offering. It may be a little lower, but that would be in line with the rest of the salaries in St. Joe too.
But you'd be immediately available even with 1 to start drawing on that intern pool, ancillary?
Yes. Yeah. Once you have 1 on board, you can start doing an intern. Mr. Metz.
Mine's gonna be, of course, our finance thing. Does that fall under health services or does it fall under special services? Where it's gonna affect our MOE?
It would be a special services, maintenance of effort cost, yes.
If we can utilize, once we have 1 on board potentially, utilize the internships, are internships, just because sometimes they are they paid internships or are they voluntary internships working for the district?
I think they're voluntary. I think they're just part of their graduate work.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that
Kind of like
because
student teaching.
you
That's
never,
correct.
never know.
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
I don't believe we could afford paid interns
Okay,
at this time.
But this would be a really great experience.
of course.
It would be
for
great
those.
experience.
We've got plenty of experience to give them.
internships a year or
They're a year. They're pretty in-depth.
pretty consistent.
Yeah, it's a rather rigorous program that a school psychologist has to go through to be credentialed, so.
Good.
While I still have the floor, I have another item on the list. We are in need of 2 secondary special education students, particularly at Lafayette High School. They have the lowest number of full-time staff there, but they're numbers are about equivalent to that as at Benton High School, based on the suggested caseload range. They are either at or above that. So they're doing the best they can, but it's time to ask for more help so that we can, one, become more in line with the desired level rather than pushing it past that.
So these are both new positions?
Those would be new positions. That would be an additional cost.
So these weren't positions that we once had and somebody left and it just wasn't filled?
No.
Okay, so this is,
Those would be new. And Mr. Metz, that would be part of our maintenance of efforts.
Right, any other questions?
You might explain the maintenance of effort.
Yes, maintenance of effort. The state requires, it's tied to the thought of discrimination. Every student should have an equal opportunity to a fair and free public education. So school districts must show that they are spending the same amount of money year to year on students with disabilities. You must spend the same amount or $1 more. It is to try to protect people with disabilities that when it comes time to eliminate services, if you have said that those services that you're paying for are required for an appropriate education, you can't, because of financial constraints, just start cutting out of that specialized program. The idea is that you put it in place because you need it, and you're going to maintain that effort unless there's just cause. Just causes can be if you have a large number of teachers retire that are on the high end of the pay scale and they're making $65,000, and you replace them with first-year teachers making $38,000, your maintenance of effort would be lower, but you can justify that based on the retirement. Also, if you were to lose a high-cost student, maybe a student with some very particular needs or needs that might have been contracted out that are expensive and they graduate, then you just write that up and say that high need student is no longer in attendance, and you document the difference between that. So, but otherwise, yes, you must continue to maintain your financial effort.
It's also cost per student. You can either you have to spend as much or $1 more, or cost per student has to stay the same or be increased.
So how are we then? I mean, do we?
Well, anything that we add in special services, ESOL, those all hit the maintenance of effort. So if you get into a financial crunch down the line, you cannot cut that department.
so it would have to stay the same.
And that's why I asked if we could put, because Desi sometimes recommends that you don't put everything directly to special services. If we could qualify that position as a health services, and I don't know that we can, and Denise said no, we could, anyway.
I think it would be a more
We probably
accurate
can.
reflection of our use
Correct.
of that position if I think we should say it's special services.
Sure.
That's the primary role is to assist students with disabilities would be the best way to do that.
So my understanding is that we're sitting around 15%, the state average is around 10.
Our average is a little over 16%,
So, I mean,
and
can
the
we look
state
at,
average is around 12.
I mean, can we make up for some of this with, maybe we've overstated, or I don't know
Well,
what happened.
that's where you could meet the per student. So if your amount of students decreases,
Right.
as long as you're meeting the per student cost, you're still okay. Correct?
That is correct.
I think one of the things that the expertise of the school psych would bring too would be to make sure that we're doing accurate identifications
Correct.
instead of possibly over-identifying.
I'm afraid we've over-identified.
Well, it's a real concern where, when you add these positions, you have to maintain. And that's a real concern going forward in the sense that we're adding dollars into this, and we gotta maintain those dollars from here on out regardless.
But that doesn't take away from the need of having them.
No, I
That wasn't
understand.
I was just trying to think of a way to meet the need
Right.
without hitting the maintenance of effort.
Right.
Exactly.
Because Desi does recommend, and this is a recommendation from Desi, you don't always necessarily have to put everything to special services.
So we really need more information on that one, whether that
We
would.
need to
But
investigate
still,
that.
this sounds like from Denise's explanation that it really should be in the special services department.
That is the honest way to
Correct.
take
We
this
trust
approach.
the expert.
They're needed positions. Another allowable reason to reduce maintenance of effort, should we ever have a mass exodus of industry in this town. we may lose a large number of families. If your student body truly overall decreases, then usually the number of students with disabilities also decreases because it's a percentage of the population. So, I mean, there are things other than people retiring that might cause a reduction in maintenance of effort. You just have to be clear in why you're reducing the maintenance of effort.
And if we have a psychologist, they're better equipped to diagnose and that. So if
Yes.
we don't have a correct diagnosis, or a student performs or, meets an expectation and they're no longer have an IEP or,
Well, for a child, even if you have a number of medical diagnoses, you still have to, there has to be an educational impact for you to require specialized instruction. A school psychologist is going to help us understand a diagnosis. What does that mean and how does it manifest itself in an educational setting? Our students come with medications. Do we really want someone skilled to talk to us about how do you treat up to a therapeutic level? What does it mean when they skip doses? What are the side effects of that? If they change counselors, what should we look for? There's just
so they can work with
a
the
level of
teachers and
professionalism.
the principals
Yes.
and anybody working in the building that has access or is in, okay.
So if you were to prioritize, would those be more important to you than the other positions you're asking for?
No, they would not be. We must meet building level student needs, immediate needs first. I mean, we have to address the caseload at Lafayette.
That's the number one priority.
That has to be addressed.
Both of those would go to Lafayette?
I'm pretty sure, Ms. Wally. I think we both at Lafayette.
I think we could get by with one, and the minimum, it would still be tight.
Other questions? Right, thank you very
You're
much.
welcome. If they come up with questions later, would you please let me know so I can
I
get answers
absolutely
to them?
will.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Right, I think I caught everybody that came to speak. What I'd like to do.
I have a question. Was the
Sure.
invite sent to everyone, like including building principals, to come and speak? Anybody that had submitted this list, were they given the invite to come and speak, or was it only given to
No, I-
directors
I
of
didn't-
departments?
I didn't send it to everybody, we did directors because a lot of the requests came through the directors. So they knew about those. Did you have something in particular in mind?
No, I just was curious, because
No, I didn't invite all of the principals to do
They
that.
were invited today when you had your principal meeting. You told them if they would like to come, they could.
Yeah.
that's kind of late notice, though. That's the only problem with that.
It was like ISS, you know, and things like that.
I'm just curious, because there's someone, I mean, since they had the opportunity to come speak, I wanted to make sure everybody that felt strongly about something had the
Yes.
opportunity to come present to us,
I-
and not just a select few.
I can speak to the ISS if you want information on that, because that came from the director level, based on looking at suspension data, that we need to be able to give our principals another option for student discipline. So,
Talking about middle school, ISF.
yes, and you can speak to that too if you.
I mean, it's one of the, it's a big request that's come through. It's one of the.
Paul, do you want to, on behalf of the administrators, are there any of these that you feel like you want to give any further explanation to?
Well, I feel like in the administrator ones, it's a little complicated because you have different levels that have different needs. You've got elementary needs, you've got middle school needs, you've got high school needs. So that seems to muddy the water for me just a little bit, and I tried to take piece by piece what people are wanting, what they're looking for. Common themes that I'm seeing from people are, I mean, some people brought up if instructional coaches were back on the table, that would be something to talk about, but I haven't seen that necessarily on this list. But psychologists, I've seen stuff for more social workers. Like we said, the ISS has come up.
Why did they choose, if you don't mind, Paul, why did they choose to do with a certificated person for ISS? It's always been a para in the past. That's pretty big.
Choices.
And I think there are two on there. I saw one that's not and one that is.
Yeah,
And I
Okay, gotcha.
didn't quite, I think if ISS was more of an academic lab type setting, you would probably want a certified person, but mean, I think just being able to have even a para, because that's what we've always done. It was a little more than a para. We'll have to forget exactly what an ISS teacher makes. It's a little more than a para, isn't it? Yeah. All right.
The reason that the two options are there, there'll be a more seamless attempt at instruction if we have a certificated teacher in the ISS setting. Hopefully they would be able to continue that student's coursework depending on how long they're in ISS rather than mostly just a supervision type of setting.
Having been in the middle school for a number of years, the beauty of having a certificated is that that person can really help with those academic behavioral interventions so they have some of the training that a non-certified person wouldn't have, and so they can be more than just a supervisor of ISS, and so they can really help the child with behavior plans and addressing why they ended up there in the first place. But I think that from what I heard from Dr. Hubbock is either one would be better than what we have now, give our principals options.
Because currently the students are just in the office, is that correct?
There's no OSS. Yeah.
So they do, at the elementary level, they're sent to another classroom.
Yeah, they're in
to
the
learn.
room.
So,
Yeah.
I can remember teaching at Bodie, and on the teams, BO, D&E, we handled a lot of it ourselves. Like there was a isolation area in one of the teachers' rooms where the students who couldn't behave, that's where they would go for a couple days or something. So it becomes extra work for them. There's no doubt. I mean, I think it's hard on the staff, principals. Some other things that, like I've said, social workers, reading teacher, interventionists. Seems like everything kind of falls in that support type categories that people are looking for. People are looking for, one thing that was brought up by a couple of the high schools was paying NHS sponsors. They do tons of work and really basically the volunteering of their time and looking to try and compensate them. There's of course questions about, and I think, the steps, there was administrators had questions about if the step is based off the 34,500 or the 36,000, is the administrative step based off which one of those? That was just with the salary part of it. But I think a lot of it looks just like we've been talking about with assistants. We had talking about the tech for Daryl Hughes to have someone who works with him, and that's what we went over right there. Tim went over more people to help us like someone to help us safety there. But for the most part, it was kind of odd because they sent stuff to me, but they also filled out an MSTA survey. I think that gave things, and some of them just said, well, I already submitted it there, so I didn't see some people's requests. I saw, because I went through that, and then some of them just said, well, I sent it to Dr. Kraus, but that's how we got this list, and then I didn't get that. But those are kind of the things. I mean, I think everyone's pretty much in agreement with the top parts being, like we said, the 1.839 million. I mean, and I think maybe we'll talk a little bit more about that, but everyone knows those things need to happen. I think everyone feels like, getting on equal footing with getting steps and things like that. But it seems more like we're looking at the support for our students. I think that's what we're all trying to, is what we're putting in beneficial for kids, and having the psychologists and just seeing a lot of the issues we've tackled in the last 2 years in our school district. It seems like things like that and helping those modifications seem to be at the forefront for a lot of people.
So you said several of them had said if they had the instructional coaches back.
Some of them had mentioned that they would be interested in getting instructional coaches back.
And what would that alleviate that's maybe on this list?
Oh, I don't, that I can't really speak to. That was just, I think they're looking more at the data and kind of someone that coordinated for the teachers and things like that. A couple of them mentioned it.
With mentors, because they're asked for mentors, pay their teacher mentors.
Some talked about for title schools, having an assistant principal at title schools. That came up. Again, it looks like stuff that adds support to certain things, certain areas. But some elementary schools need stuff like increased pay for safety patrol sponsors. So again, it's almost on a need by case
Each building's
Yeah,
different.
Yeah, each building, so
Has
it's
a
kind of
different need.
it's kind of tough to look at a little bit.
Can somebody speak to the reading teachers with the non-titled elementary schools?
We get, non-title, we get like 1/2 of a day with reading teachers, and we have large classes. And so we have one reading teacher, half a day,
For the entire.
for the
building.
entire building.
And how many students?
Anywhere.
But you're
from-
talking grades K through 6, not.
But they don't, and they only do like K1 or K2 because there's no way they can touch any of those
Right.
additional kids. And we can't do necessarily guided reading in those upper grades because we have so many other, like the time just doesn't work for that. We can do skill groups and stuff. But we don't have, upper grades have no extra resources in non-title. Instructional coaches did help with that in some buildings too. They would come down and work with younger kids or upper kids in different skill groups as well. But we only have one reading teacher, half a day.
Half a day.
On that item, I have heard we need more reading support. We just have to be real careful on the Title I, that if we're gonna add a .5 reading teacher, that we need to add that .5 reading teacher to all buildings, because right now, we're using title funds to pay for that halftime reading teacher in the other buildings. And so,
That was
It has
brought
to
up
be
too, that
equal?
if it went
Is that
there,
right?
it had to
So
So
go.
if we got a full-time, we'd have to have half-time.
right, in other words, we can't use title funds to pay for things that the district's paying for other non-title kids. So if the district's paying for a full-time reading teacher for a non-title school, then we also have to pay for a full-time reading teacher in a title school. And then if we want to add another half, they
Then it
can use
could be-
title
then
funds
it
for
could be
that.
title.
Yeah. But it would be half-time, though, right? But
Right,
our
but the
fund
district
doesn't
would,
increase.
the district would, right now, the district's paying for a half-time reading teacher in all buildings. So if we want to increase that, and there is, I mean, there is a need, we would need to add a half-time to all elementary buildings, not just the non-title. That make sense?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
So essentially it'd be a full-time in all of them.
Yes.
Yeah, so it shouldn't say at non-title elementary, it should say a .5 to give a full-time to everybody.
everybody,
Then
yeah.
title can still hire
So
theirs.
the
And I
title would
will-
have 1.5. Yes?
Right, if they
Yes.
choose to,
Okay.
yeah. And one of our board goals, just throwing that as a board member, is literacy. And so we're gonna be looking very closely at where we need to help our kids with reading and literacy skills as a district, as a board. So just throwing that out there.
So we should probably get rid of the non-title.
Well, and what we would need to do with that figure would be double it, so it would be, instead of 190, it would be 380.
Well, I hate to submit, I mean, is there any real data to support that we're seeing a dramatic increase by increasing it by half of a? I mean, are we seeing, wow, reading rates went up dramatically when we increased that to a full-time position? How are we going to assess that?
What the principals told me was,
Our
at the
reading data.
non-title buildings, was that they definitely had kids 3rd through 6th who fell through the cracks because they didn't have that specialized instructor.
Absolutely. You have kids that get to 5th and 6th grade, they're supposed to be at 850 minimum. And they're at a 430, and they're not special services.
Well, what
Especially
worries
in
me,
larger classrooms. Whereas if we had those teachers in upper grades, they could really work with those groups of kids that were low and needed more help.
yeah, it always worries me when we throw one at something, in the sense of just one really benefit. I mean, do we need 2 or 3? I mean, I hate to say that,
We need,
but I mean, when you
Probably
water
massive.
something down that dramatically, what's the real benefit to your data if it doesn't show it? Then you're watering it too much.
At the same time, you need to start somewhere
That's what I was gonna say.
and build.
I
And
know.
But our
you know,
purpose
show-
too is to
and
find
we
out
show a need. I mean,
where
there's a
our
need.
district needs to run.
Yeah.
And do we need reading teachers to run and do what we need to? Do we need a behavior, like we need to figure out what we need to do to run so we can justify asking for more money instead of being bare bones. And yeah, we function here, but really, we need here to really thrive. So that's kind of my thought on
My
things.
continued question has been not what do we need to get back where we were, because that wasn't good enough, and everybody
No.
sitting around this table knows that was even close to good enough. My question is, where do we need to be? What do we need so that we are a district ran where we need to be? We're meeting all the needs and we're thriving, a successful district, and that's kind of the, that's what we need to think in the big picture, because hopefully everybody's looking at the big picture, but
And
yeah.
our goal isn't to be here in the middle, our goal is to be upper. So we have to figure out what that is.
And any
what
of
it
those
is that we
extra
need.
support roles would help in the classrooms. I mean, if those kids are getting extra support where they need extra support, they're gonna be able to thrive more in classrooms, whether it be, special services, school psychologists, certified ISS, reading teachers. That'll reach kids that need to be reading.
But we gotta balance all that, because you're gonna go to the public and say, look, we added all these positions, psychologists and all these things, they're gonna say, but you don't have any money. And we don't know if we have any money yet, and that's probably the worst thing you can do with the public, is to say, look, we're gonna hire all these people.
But they'll say you have enough if you don't.
Well, they might or they might not, but we can't force them to vote for it by overhiring. I mean, that could be a tremendous, we're rolling those dice and we're counting on sevens right off the bat, and boy, that's a mistake.
Well, I
It's-
think it's not a good thing to say that we're overhiring, because if these are true needs,
We're under,
then we are
Because
not.
right now, we're so
we're
under.
barely meeting minimum, so overhiring is a pretty strong.
But we're gonna have to talk the public into that.
The public wants the best for our kids.
Exactly.
And if we are proving and showing them that we are putting the kids first, the support will be there.
I haven't heard anything from the J section of the team. Any of you ladies have something you want
The
to?
three J's are.
The three J's are
quiet
together.
They're quiet tonight.
What do you have to share with us?
Well, I am on the agenda in a little while.
Okay.
So she's gonna wait.
She's
Well,
gonna-
I kind of got a tally from my group, and of course, their concerns. The top three, they said, were to evaluate the secretary compensation levels, add additional para days back to the paras and the librarians that lost their days. And then classified is still not really, same race for the classified and STEP was kind of something they were interested in. They were voicing concerns. They're still not where they should have been pay-wise, but yet they still feel like they lost some perks. So those were their three things.
Great. Jessica?
Yeah, we are mostly in the support, giving the support, so we're more for the psychologists, the reading, all the special services, just what's directly gonna affect the kids, and then even they get into the DESI desirable, adding more teachers so those class sizes are smaller to really help those kids is where we all kind of look to. We were kind of on the same page there with what they were just talking about.
According to ours, we were there too. Reading teachers, they were high up on the thing, and also we had a question in our survey about the master's column being addressed because it wasn't addressed. Which is like the classified being adjusted to where they should be.
Right.
That's how our master's column feels too.
And so, and like, could we have the school nurse certification on here, and when everybody saw the list, they're like, well, yeah, it'd be great, but obviously there's more
Explain a little bit
important
about that, Jessica,
Well,
what that involves.
And so there's a national school nurse certification, and it's a pretty rigorous thing that you study for and take a test, and then you're nationally certified to be as a school nurse. And it just obviously shows that you have more training and education, and just have learned more about what it takes to be a school nurse. And I did check with the other subsidies that work under the health services, like OT and PT, and they don't have a specific. They kind of have to be certified already to have a job. Like that's just the way it is. We have to be licensed to have a job, but they already have to have a certification to have a job. So they don't have a specific thing where they can go out and be certified as a school PT or whatever, if you will. So school nursing's a little bit different since we kind of work on our own. We're not with other nurses or doctors or things like that. So we kind of are on our own in a building, so it just kind of gives you ways to work that. But honestly, truthfully, after everybody saw this list, yeah, it'd be great if we were to be, I don't even know how you say that word, given an emolument for.
That's to get away from stipend.
I knew it was. I know. That's why I didn't say that word. That's why I didn't say that word. But yes, for earning such a certificate. But we also see that other things are, at this point, much more important.
Are there people currently working on that are nurses?
There
in the
are
district?
people that were considering it. I feel like Maria's probably getting ready to start on it, but
So
yeah.
one out of how many
Oh
building
gosh, what are
nurses
there,
do you
like
know?
30 of us?
Yeah, 30.
20
Yeah.
or 30?
I had the book for a short time, but then I just got overwhelmed with life, so.
Brian, I
Maybe
haven't
later.
heard anything from you. What do you got?
I'm just taking it all in. I did meet with my group, and I mean, yes, we'd like to have the day, days back for everyone. I just wish we had all the money in the world to fulfill these requests. I mean, that would be perfect. I just see all the, I say me, but we look at all these requests. I mean, they would all benefit our kids in some way or somewhat.
Yeah, there are no frivolous requests on here. These are all
They're all
things that would-
justifiable, and it's just hard. I
It's
mean,
overwhelming, isn't it?
well, it's like, kind of feel like, well, yeah, we want more days, but how do we say, well, if you guys want more days, we can't hire a psychologist. So, it's like, well, how do I benefit my school? You know, it's hard.
But I will
So-
say for you guys, coming in the day school starts to
Yes,
set up
I
your
agree.
stuff is probably not acceptable.
No,
You have to-
I agree.
I mean, there was library techs, I mean, people that were in there and they're like, I mean, they do so much, but they couldn't show up until the day of. They were,
Well, and they run classes in our building.
they feel like they're letting their school down, and that no one should feel like that, and
Right.
they work so hard, and it's like, oh my gosh.
Are you
gotta-
finding, since you've went over on the time clock, what are your checks coming out like? Are you making more money this year, the same amount of money, or where are you at?
Well, with my loss in days, I'm making less.
So you're making less this year than last year?
Mm-hmm.
And you were already.
Well,
at
now let me
salary
rephrase
rates.
that. I'm making, if I didn't have my safety patrol on there, I would be making less. Yes, I would be making less with my days reduced. Now, the time clock.
And your
that's-
library facilitator.
Problem. So I knew it was gonna happen because they cut
So we
the
were
hours.
told that would not happen.
I knew it would happen. I knew it was gonna happen.
Now, I had to find a part-time job to help compensate those days. I mean, that's just real life. So,
Yes, and you haven't even hit the
How
holidays.
much less is that, do you know?
I could figure it out.
Not to get personal here, but
No, I
just
mean,
curious.
I could work, I mean,
Yeah, we could look it up too.
It's between 4% and 7%.
so,
That's what I feel.
I didn't know if you just knew.
I'm not right off the top of my head, I don't.
So,
Should not
were the
have to go out
paras,
to a second job. That
But a lot of
just-
teachers, I mean, have second jobs too.
I
And
understand.
And I choose to have the job that I have, because I love what I do. But I just think the loss in days, that really did hurt us.
And now if you don't work the hours, you don't get paid. I mean, that's different too. You guys got squeezed at both ends here, so.
They weren't getting
They
paid if they.
Well,
didn't
we weren't
work
getting
hours.
paid
They were
anyway.
always-
Right.
They're hourly
Yeah,
employees.
they've always been hourly employed.
And I guess and that was something that came up in our discussions too. We're hourly, sourly.
You were hourly, but you were salaried, yes.
So no matter how many hours we work, we get the same amount at the end of the month. Anyway, so I guess there's some confusion there, or we need further explanation.
so what do administrators think as far as with the library facilitators and the paras? Were they coming in 7 days before school starts with when the kids start? Is that what it was previously?
They
They were
had the
reporting
teachers.
everyone is, I mean, they couldn't even
Same
be at our,
calendar as the
they couldn't even be at our meetings.
Right.
Because
Right.
I mean, they can't even be at the intro meetings, and like Dr. Stevens is opening up before, they can't be at
Even
the.
as a volunteer, they couldn't come?
They,
Oh, they can't volunteer.
They can't
volunteer.
They can't even come as a volunteer at the school carnival. I mean, it's crazy.
and I will add one more thing for our librarians and her administrative assistant. I mean, with the way that we've run with Chromebooks this year, they have to check them out there's one I know of that works overtime that doesn't probably clock it because she has to check in these Chromebooks and stuff.
So now, Dr. Kraus, if they were put on the teacher's schedule, then they could go to the carnivals and they could, I mean, what makes the law different?
But does it, how can the law dictate where I choose to volunteer my time or don't? I'm curious,
Because we're hourly
I mean, if
employees.
I
There's-
choose to volunteer for,
Let me try to explain, and Wes, after I botch this, you correct me. Unfortunately, Wes and I would love to write the laws, but we don't get to.
Sure.
yeah, I understand.
The Department of Labor has very strict regulations about volunteering at your normal job or at your normal job site. You just simply cannot. This district is under a microscope. Well, the last thing we need is a wage and hour audit to say, hey, you're letting people come and you're not paying them. We can't do that. We have to follow the law. Do the laws make sense? No, I don't think they do, but we just simply cannot afford to have people volunteering illegally. If anybody gets caught, it's gonna be us.
So if they were put on the teacher's schedule, would they be able to attend like those family nights? Like,
If
even
they
though they're
don't-
not getting paid during that time?
If they don't have a duty, if they have a child at that school, they could come. But
They still
an
wouldn't be able to
hourly
come.
employee can't volunteer at their school.
But they can't just come and not do anything, just come and
Hang out?
hang out?
Yeah, they could do that if you have a duty.
Dude, like
Okay.
working, like selling
Gotcha,
television.
like to work the dump tank or whatever. You
Unless
can't do
they're a
that.
parent at that
Gotcha.
school,
And
or
if
does
they're-
that
if they're a
cross
par-
the
If they're a
line?
parent at that school, I think they could come with their child.
Okay.
The reason behind it is employers used to be years ago would say, you need to volunteer for this event.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
take advantage of the money.
But if
See,
you're
and
a parent-
that's where and it's because of that,
Yeah.
that the law is there.
If
I mean,
you're
it's
a
not
parent and you're on
us.
the PTA, if
They
you're a
would
parent
do
and you're on the
that.
PTA and PTA says,
That's
you know,
what I
can you
just
sign
said.
up to do the dump tank?
Cause you're
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
it through
Questionable.
PTA at that point?
Right, because you're
That
a
would be
PTA.
questionable.
Volunteer.
Walmart got in
day-to-day
trouble for it,
function, so
employees
it's not
walking
really
from
for
the
the-
front of the store
You're
back
still a
to
district
4 o'clock
employee,
in.
and that's what it will
That little
fall
bit of time cost $1 million.
Wow.
You've gotta be strict about it. If there's a teacher checking in Chromebooks and they're hourly, that's a violation of law. And
Wow.
they can't do it. I mean, cause boy, if we get nailed by it, it won't be just that employee. They come in and they nail you like they did Walmart.
The
And
penalties are
around
key.
that, it was
You know,
terrible.
it isn't us intentionally.
Yeah, it's not.
We're not
us.
trying to
No, I know
be.
it's not.
No,
your-
no,
We're just
no.
trying to get it
Yeah,
figured
right.
out. We're just trying to get it in our
honestly never heard
heads,
that
yeah.
before.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, it's.
it's brutal.
So I hear the discussion around the table going back to maybe, because I can't vote, not that I don't take notes, but, you know, I hope that you're starring or circling or something, these that we feel we really, really have to have, because somewhere along the way, that's gonna have to add up to our,
The ESPs have gotta have some help, and we've gotta do something substantial. They took a hit, and a substantial hit, and they're so important to what we do.
Well, and I looked, since we're big at looking into what other school districts around us do, I've looked at Platte County, Smithville, Savannah, Park Hill. What makes us different, at the elementary level, they're certified librarians in their building with a full-time aide. We don't have that at the elementary level. If you look at the job descriptions of a certified librarian in Platte County, we're doing that. And if you look at the aide description, we wouldn't have to do all that. So if you want to make us a library aide at the elementary level, then a lot of things would need to be looked at. A lot of us are in job embedded, have other duties and responsibilities that we do, and I don't think elementary principals would want to, that's just my opinion, I'm just speaking, they wouldn't want to give that up. I mean, because there wouldn't be anywhere for those kids to go during that time. And I feel job embedded is important at the elementary level, so that would all have to be looked at and redone. But that's what makes us different. We don't work under a certified, I'm the sole man. I order books, I look at my budget, I do lesson plans, I do all that.
Soul Man, that was a song once.
Brian, what's your okay, so
I think that was a different.
coming in when we start, it's not okay. What's your minimum amount of days you need to feel like you guys can have your lives ready for kids on that first day? Because our librarian had kids on the first day. Classes
See,
ran like normal.
And that was asked not to have happen, I believe, is that correct?
What's that?
Well,
Not
she
to-
was scheduled to. So
Well, I'm
a
just
teacher
saying-
missed out on a break time because, stuff like that. Like 3 days, 7 days?
I know some librarians miss their opening meetings. I just felt a real disconnect this year, just because, we were not allowed on school property. We could not be because we were not on contract days, and it just felt really weird. I was granted 2 days to work, and I did come to my opening staff meeting, but I missed trauma training, which I feel is important. Our PD had to get canceled for us on our new purchasing system. I feel it's just as important as teachers.
Yes, you are.
I mean, if we stay in our current role, then yes. If not, then we would have to look at that.
So you would like to start when teachers start?
So Dr. Kraus, were the library aides and the paras, general paras, paras in general, paras, all paras, they're under that additional days for paras, right? So
There's
no,
a
Yeah, paras is a separate
Separate
line.
line item for
okay, that's what I'm not finding.
library.
The librarian was toward the bottom, 1, 2,
What's the
3, 4,
line
5,
number?
6, 7, 8,
26, 20.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry, additional days for library facilitators, okay, because my suggestion was gonna be maybe those people needed to go back to a teacher schedule and consider the paras
And I
depending,
have looked at
because
the
that's a
para-
different kind of a para.
And I have looked at the paras, job descriptions from other districts as well. They work student days plus 2 days, and that extra 2 days is up to the district.
Right, so they could come in for the building meeting or whatever.
But the paras I've heard from want their days back to plan with teachers. But every preschool paras got their full days. So they're different than a classroom para.
Well, and I
that-
think it needs to break down, because in my building alone, we have, every para is different. I mean, we have paras that are with, that are teaching with the autism. And so, and then there's just a regular classroom para. I think it needs to be broken down into what type of para you are.
Special ed paras that
Exactly.
are having very high need,
Exactly.
specialized attention to their
Right.
students, need that training prior to going in on that
Exactly.
first day
Exactly.
with a student who is in
Right.
a wheelchair and needs fed and all that stuff.
Great discussion. These are all really valid points. I sent around what I had typed up as a brief description of the needs of all of these line items. Did everybody look through that? Anybody have any questions on those?
That was amazing.
But, and again, I want to stress, there's nothing here that wouldn't benefit kids. Nobody gave me anything that was, superfluous. This is all stuff that would be great if we could do it. Obviously, we can't. And I think this discussion, the thing that I'm the most pleased about with this entire discussion is the idea of this whole group is for everybody to understand the district perspective. I think in our own lives, we all get kind of tunnel vision in terms of what's going to benefit my building, my job. And this is great for helping people understand the needs of the district. It's all intertwined. Every individual that we hire affects kids in some way. And so we have to keep that in mind. What I would like to do, unless there are other things that you feel like need to be out today, for next time, I would like for everybody who's a voting member, which would be everybody at the table except us four, to submit to me sometime before that a listing. We talked about giving each item a 1 through 3. 1 being this is something we feel like we have to do. 2 being this would be great if we can afford it. And 3, this is nice, but it doesn't rise to the level of these other items. I think it would be interesting if you guys send me those, I could tabulate them. I would like for you in your 1s to try not to go over the 3 million. Remember, that's our working figure.
And that's 3 million minus this 1,800 already?
Well, we've got 1.8 million up.
1.8 million. I totally meant that.
We've got 1.8 million in red, but just as an example, let's say you think that it would be better to give the same classified raise and step as last year, where you're going to put that 1.19 million, 11 million up there and take the other part off. You would take the step for classified would come off. So
that meant, those figures I think she was asking is part of the 3 million.
That's what I figured. That's what I thought.
So whatever you give a 1 to should total somewhere in the range of 3 million. If you want to do, or less, I think we'll probably, if we can get it 3 million, we'll be good. So, like I said, their voting members, there should be 14, I believe. 2, 3, 4, 15. Yeah, and we have 2 that are gone. So if you would send that to me in a week, is that real? Well, wait, let's say, how about the Monday after Thanksgiving? Is that doable?
Just as a suggestion, we could split it into quartiles if you did 1 through 4, and it might statistically be easier to figure, but I'm just saying.
I don't
As
have any
as
problem
opposed
with
to
that.
1 to 3, quartiles would be easier than thirds. Just as,
I have a question. How long will we be able to sustain the items in red? Year to year, or
That's
has
a
that
really
been-
good question.
I mean, just as our base, because we're really gonna be struggling to get a levy passed.
If,
Watch your time.
and
I
again,
know, we're gonna have, it's gonna happen, but
gonna
just in
happen.
case it doesn't.
Wes, do you want to answer this question, or shall I boggle it?
Go right ahead.
If I understand Wes correctly, obviously, we don't know for sure what we're gonna spend this year, because we're only a couple months in. If we spend all the dollars that are budgeted, will be about 2.5 million into deficit,
It's actually 5.5.
5.5 million.
if we spend everything.
If we spend every dollar this year and do increases for next year, at the end of 18, we'll be down to about 11% reserves.
Okay.
I think that there's a little cushion in there, so it could be as high as 15% reserves. But remember, anything we do additionally, even going forward, if we don't get a revenue source, it's just gonna continue depleting because your expenses are going up and your
That's what I'm trying to
reserves are going
find out,
down.
like-
It's like a,
Is it a couple years?
Hopefully not past this year.
it's hard to say, nobody can see in the future. We don't know what revenues are gonna do. Revenues could increase, we could get a new business in town, I mean, with everything staying constant, the way it is right now, I mean, yeah, we've gotta do something. If the revenue source doesn't come by 18, we have to really look at everything we're doing right now.
And that includes
I don't know if
cuts.
they want me to speak.
Would you like to speak?
oh yeah.
Go for it.
You need to do something sooner than later, because what's gonna happen, you're already talking about the fact that we made cuts last year. And if you don't wanna go down that road, because it's gonna hit everybody in the face becoming the 18-19 school year. That's when it's gonna hit. And it'll be significant cuts. And I hate to paint that picture, and I'm like Wes, I think, you're talking about 100% of your budget expenditures, and we do not do that. And it'll more than likely be projected at the end of 17, 18, I would say 13 to 15% latitude.
That'd be like, yeah.
That's what we've got to get ahead of. And I've always said we need to find out what it takes to run the district, but we can't keep adding to find that out. We've got to stop or slow down significantly and go after a revenue source. And if the teachers and the staff cannot see that, because that's who it's going to affect the most, and in peripheral areas first. Again, I hate to say that. But that's just, that's just the nature of the business, or any business you're in.
Is it accurate to say 63 cents will not put us back? We have to go higher than that even.
That is correct.
Yeah.
So that's,
Just to break even this year on $5.5 million, you need 55 cents. I mean, it's $1 billion assessment, it's easy math. That's the rough estimate. And that would just break us even this year, basically. But again, you've got to build a better foundation. That's why I'm so, and Wes is too, after a Prop C waiver. That builds you a better foundation that should have been done 25 years ago, people.
Yeah.
And that's what's sad about all this, is that we let's get everybody caught up, and then it's gonna take a Prop C plus is what it's gonna take.
Right.
Gonna take a dual.
And really, it's probably plus another 50 cents to get you to 10 million.
So, your red items, any additional staff's gonna increase that number just to meet steps and movements.
And I mean, that was, maybe it's, I don't know, the secretary thought, but several people said to me, where are we getting the money for this? And I said, this is a wish list, but I agree with them. This would be so awesome, but where does this come from?
And that's where we as a
It's a
board
miracle.
step
There's
out.
no way we can do everything on this list.
I mean, but
No,
where is even,
nobody's even trying to get
even a
even
couple
close.
things on here, we're bumping up.
At the last board meeting, that was, well, it was a work session, wasn't really a board meeting, our last training session, that was the question that Wes posed to the board. How much are you willing to go out? Knowing that we really don't have any, we don't have a dime to go out if we're, I mean, without getting into reserves, and that's a whole education process in itself about what reserves are. Because it's not a savings account. And I hope that you people around this table understand that. But, and that was the question, and Dr. Kraus attended just to hear, what is it? And the board said, okay, we'll go again with the 3 million. Deep breath, knowing that we have a, you know, a plan for, to bring something to the people. And so we need our people, every single person, being positive to the public, especially out in the public, but most definitely in your building, because we're hearing people who aren't. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, I'm gonna do all this work and go out on this, you know, they don't pay me, it's free. I take a lot of hits, that's okay. I have broad shoulders, but I would hope that the people that are gonna benefit from it, you know, would be there with us too. So probably I'm out of place for giving this little speech, but that's, you know, I've been known to be.
Do we have any part of our community engagement surveys back as to what the public thinks would be good things to spend? I mean, in the sense of, I can look at some of these and say the public's gonna eat that alive, and they're gonna say, ooh.
Well, we haven't sent our surveys to
No, they
the
won't
public
start
yet.
till the
Surveys
27th.
go out the week after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
We'll have a lot more information by our next
Oh, that's good, 'cause
SJSD.
Which is so important.
Oh,
I mean,
you gotta
I've been
have
the
it.
one screaming public
you gotta have it.
input. We've got to get the
They've gotta
input.
be behind us.
Our stakeholders have to have input.
Because if we don't have the community
Right.
support, then we can't do anything. And that's where the education piece is. And when people make statements about over employing and that I've heard so many times that there's so much fat on the bone. We don't have fat on the bone. This district has run bare minimum for a very long time. And we have huge potential in this community to do amazing things for these kids who grow up in this community. And it's time that we step up and do it.
Okay. I want to rein us back a little bit here. Okay, it's
Start off with my
great
hand.
discussion, great discussion. Being mindful of our time, I'm still hoping we can be done by 6. What I would like to do, again, with those of you who are voting members, I like Todd's idea about the quartiles. Let's go a 1 through 4. 1 should comprise 3 million-ish. You know, give or take a couple 100,000, who's counting?
And if you're just adding to the red, it should be 1.2.
Yeah, if you're just adding to the red, it would be 1.2, but you can take anything down here and replace, well, I don't think we can replace
The PTO.
PTO buyback, we can't replace horizontal movement. Any of those other 3 could be replaced with one that's below it. Okay, so 2 would be next most important, 3 next most important, and 4 those that you think are the least important for the time being. And when did we say the Monday after Thanksgiving? What's that date? 28? 28? If you could have those to me by the 28th, I'll tabulate them. I'm not going to put any names on them, and I'll just send out a synopsis, a tally to everybody in the group then. And like I said, it's just the voting members, so the 4 of us will not put one in. We won't be part of the tally, so it would be you guys.
And so then at our next meeting.
Then at our next meeting, we'll really get serious. We've just been kidding around so far.
Well, will you add in like what Gina said and what Tim said? I mean, kind of you redo that, kind of, because he said assistant security, is that on, and then is bench tech on there, an additional tech, middle?
They were listed as one line item with
One-
3 people.
And it's three.
Yeah, make sure you understand that.
Tech department staffing request, okay.
Reading from left to right, the first column of numbers, that's for an individual if there's more than one involved. And then the column on the right is the cumulative cost. So the first one that does that is additional elementary teachers to reach DESI standard. There are 26 of them. If each are 47.5, you get 26 of them, that's 12.35. So if you wanted to say, well, they asked for 2 school psychs, but I only want to do 1, well, just put 1 up there in your total. Okay, so yeah, you can play with this, it's your money. Spend it wisely. Okay?
And understand how hard
Yeah.
it is.
Right, so yeah, if you want to say, well, they asked for 2 of this, but I think 1 is important, but 2 would fall to a number 2 or 3, feel free to do that. Yeah, yeah, give it your best shot, and send these to me, and like I said, I'll tally them and get them out.
Well, and make sure that if they haven't read all of the descriptions that you sent to them,
Read
they
it.
really need to read those, because
Yeah.
some of these may look like, really? But when you read it, you might really see what the true need is in that particular building or in that, for that line item.
Okay, it's great, thank you, it was a great discussion. Let's go ahead and put that aside. We were back on the coding of PTO days, and I want to go pretty quickly through those. I know that you guys have had some concerns about when you coded a PTO day, it was, you just wanted to be just sick and nothing asked beyond that. I talked to a lot of people, and I did some thinking about this. The reason I feel like it's important and justifiable that we ask for more information is that in our policy, it states that a person can, excessive absences is something that a person can be released for. If it's more than 5 in a month, 20 in a semester, 40 in a year. I think that extra information is valuable because let's say somebody has 10 absences in a month. If they all just say sick, I don't know why they were gone. If I know that person and they say, well, you know, I've got 3 kids, they took turns getting the flu. My father had open heart surgery, I went to be with him, and I broke my finger in the car door and had to be out for a day. To me, that being gone those 10 days for those reasons is a whole lot different than I took 10 sick days. Now, I don't think we have the right to information like I have a doctor's appointment. Fine, leave it at that. I don't need to know what your ailment was. But I do think that it's valuable information, and I think that since a person can be released for excessive absences, as your employer, I feel like we have the right to know whether you were sick, whether your kid was sick, whether your father had a heart attack, whether your mother had surgery, whatever it happened to be.
The people I've heard speak to this say you would only need to address the problem. So if it became a problem with an employee, then you ask them, can you explain these days? Can you provide documentation? Don't punish everyone for a few that are abusing it.
How many seconds does it take you to click that little button?
I understand. We're the messengers representing a whole large group of people who we negotiated that it would be 2 options, and that's what we were told. So for that not to be followed through on doesn't give us a lot of faith moving forward. And I understand you specifically weren't in that role at that time, but that's what we were told would happen, and it didn't happen. So people feel like, again, why are you punishing everyone for a few that may abuse it?
Well, and I would just say.
If I may address
Yeah.
real quick, the agreement was signed by everybody at that table, and what was in that agreement was also placed in the policy.
But it was also agreed
Which
that
time
what
you-
would be on the system would be either 2 or 3 things, and that was it, not the whole list.
That was never on the agreement that was
Because we had
followed.
faith that you would follow through with what you told us in a recorded session that was negotiated. I mean, frankly, that is, we believed you would follow through with what we were told.
What happened on that was the MSBA and attorneys also got involved with that, and the listing of the reasons why, and then the tracking of it was also added when it came in this year with July.
That was never communicated to those of us that negotiated.
That's what happened though, but again, everything that was agreed upon, okay, in writing, back at the negotiation, was followed.
So everything from moving forward needs to be in writing, not that we can just take your word. Is that what I understand?
I think we're splitting hairs in my opinion. Obviously, it's not in yours. I understand what you're asking. From a data side, we're not, we are addressing, I guess what I need to say, people that are abusing it. I do want to let you know that. And the people that aren't, it really acts as a protection for them in all honesty. That's what Mr. Krause is saying.
And sitting at the table now as a board member, but as a past educator who negotiated for many, many, many years my salary and benefits for the district that I was in, too many years to count. At first I was like, heck no, you don't need to know why I'm gone. I'm either sick or I'm, what's the other one? Personal or whatever, yeah, that, and Dr. Krause will tell you that. I came in, what? No, what's A to J? What's, Dr. Newhart will tell you that. I'm like, what the heck is this? But if you go back to your people and you say what Dr. Krause just said to you, instead of just marking sick, say sick child, sick doctor appointment, sick dad, whatever, then I'm thinking of a teacher that we have right now who spent weeks at Columbia Hospital. And that's not the only thing that's going to hit her this year health-wise. She also has 3 kids, I believe, and, so because she can hit sick dad, and she says that, then no one's going to jump on her right away. Number one, you're not going to be accused of something that you weren't doing, because if you just see 20 days, you might be called in for that insubordination to the policy because it's not more than 5 days in a month or whatever. If you're sitting in Dr. Krause's shoes, he's keeping track of everybody in the district. You're keeping track of you, so you know why you've been gone and you can justify it. If we give a little bit more explanation, then we're not so quick to, then it's understandable. So that person who's been gone, when she has a sick child, when she herself is sick, when you just have doctor's appointments that you need to do, it's not even going to be questioned. Under personal time and sick time, it'd be questioned the minute she hits 6th day.
There probably should be an acknowledgement on there. You are, by marking this market as a legal document, being treated as a legal document now. Any falsification of this document can. For instance, when you log in on your computer now, you have to hit OK. Acknowledging that the district, they have the right to watch what you do they have the right to do everything on the computer. The same way, if these teachers are going to be held accountable in that document for if they hit the wrong category, they can be held legally accountable. There probably needs to be some kind of a additional click on here. This is a legal document. On
page 1, in red, 3/4 of the way down, I think we took care of that. Misusing the district's time off policies or excessive absenteeism or tardiness can result in disciplinary action up into and including termination of employment. That covers kind of that. And Todd, if someone mistakenly hits this or that in their question, they can explain that. And hopefully we're going to treat them as professionals. I find that in Dr. Krause, but it totally changed my perspective that this is a benefit more to the employee by hitting those things than just saying sick.
Then it
or
goes
time
back
off.
to communicating to
Exactly.
the staff.
Right.
Like why those were listed when we agreed not to be, and then why it is a good thing.
In good faith.
It's listed.
They bargained in good faith.
Yes, we did,
Right.
that you were going to follow what you agreed. Lori was sitting on the other side of that table as well. And again, I understand you specifically weren't there, you're trying to make sense of all of it. Yeah, an easy communication, here's why it's on there, so that people aren't coming to us going,
What the
what,
heck?"
you were there negotiating, they promised, why aren't they doing it? You
That
wanted
was
to have
on-
faith in
That was on
you?
the policy though,
Yes, we
that
understand.
was board approved from the get-go.
But the words you said and what was written were different.
You signed off on it, Alyssa.
But you agreed of how it would be implemented.
How it would be put into the
We had
actual
numerous
system.
discussions on how it would be put in the system. We didn't realize we literally had to write down every single thing.
We
thought-
we had faith that it was going to be followed through.
Do you think taking
I'd
that
like
back?
to go back and review those
Please do.
videos. I would
Please
love
do.
to.
Can we bring this to the next
Yes.
superintendent conversation that you have? And move on? Okay.
But moving forward, do you think you could take that back and explain now what
I
it
think it needs
is?
to come from the district, not from us. We negotiated and we bargained for it to be a certain way based on what people had shared they wanted. I think it needs to come from someone with more authority than any of us.
Or even just as a committee? That's why we have the committee to, and realize that I know communication hopefully is going to be better moving forward, but this committee is going to hopefully take the place of a lot of that misunderstanding as we move forward.
Okay. In climate weather guidelines, we were discussing that. I think, Brian, you may have been the one who originally asked that question. Right now, and again, jump in unless I'm wrong. Right now, there are 6 snow days built into our calendar. The inclement weather guideline says that an hourly employee can, if they have a sick day, if they have a leave day available, can use that rather than not be paid for that day. I think the question from Brian was, well, what if we have more than 6? When you get to 6, you could use leave days for those 6. On day 7, everybody's making it up. Okay, so taking a 7th sick day wouldn't be an option because everybody, by state standards, we're going to start making up days when we hit 7 snow days. Now here's where I get a little confused. Was 8 we wouldn't make up, 9 we would,
Every 2
10
days.
So every 2.
Right.
Every 2 after.
Let's just make
Until
this
we
more
get to a
difficult.
total of 10.
Okay.
And
That's
after
the
10, they're
Missouri
forgiven.
legislature.
Yeah,
Yeah.
after 10, then you're done.
So chances are we're not going to have more than 10 snow days. But,
It has happened.
yeah, but does that clear that up, Brian?
So, I mean, even though, like, our pay is based off 174 days, if we had a snow day, it's based off 173, and we didn't work, our paycheck would be less at the end of the month, if we didn't take a vacation day.
Didn't you say that we pay people on snow days?
Only teachers. They're salaried employees.
Salary employees.
I
Well,
swear
no,
that was said.
there was
Oh, no, wait a minute.
discussion.
If Dr. Newhart completely closes the district,
Right.
if it's hazardous for everybody not to come, then they would be paid.
So,
Every
like-
person would be paid.
So, okay, so let me get this straight in my head. So on a snow day, the only people that usually come unless it's like blizzard are engineers, right?
Every hourly employee would have to report.
So now librarians have to go,
They would come or they would,
because they didn't have to come in the past,
Or
correct?
they would use.
They could use a leave day.
A leave day,
They could use a sick day?
if
Yep.
they have.
Okay, I
A
was
PTO day.
confused on that, I wanted to clarify that.
yes, you can use a leave day,
Okay,
So sick or personal.
6 or personal, yes,
okay.
or vacation if you have them.
See, we feel like we're being penalized, I mean, you can't control Mother Nature.
Yeah.
I guess it's never happened in the past where we've been penalized if the district has to close for the weather.
You guys still got paid in the past.
They used to make them up years ago. The built-in days have only been happening for the last couple of years. That's why.
Your jobs are so tied to instruction. I mean, that's what you do. You're part of the instructional process, not operations.
So I guess if it's bad for the
Still
kids to
hourly
get out, you're
employees.
gonna ask employees to get out?
Yeah, but when the school.
It's just that
Report to
we
work.
used to get paid for snow days and now we don't, right?
Before they changed the calendar to the shorter year, when they were doing the 187 days, which was 2 years ago,
Right.
was it 3 years ago? Whenever they changed it, it was when Zeronka was here. At that time, they made up all the snow days. That's why they were paid for all the days.
The Paris did. It was all screwy.
Yeah, anyway,
But I
so
know
the days were made
past
up in the
that,
future.
Like
Yeah.
secretaries got the day off.
Right, and now they,
Some did, some didn't.
if
See,
they were index
that's the
24,
big
they got the
question.
day off.
Everybody's.
Or, I
If
mean,
they're
they
hourly
worked.
employees, they're paid by the hour. They're not non-exempt. Non-exempt employee, or exempt employees do not have to report because they're salaried employees. Non-exempt employees, to get paid, yes, because they're
See,
hourly employees.
I was
That's a
a
wage and hour law.
Yeah, well, I was a part-time and I never got paid for.
Yeah, so yeah, you
Okay, so can I have a comment? This is common sense question, but I'm gonna put it out there because there's gonna be a snow day and a blackout day. Librarian takes a PTO day. That's still gonna be honored, right? I mean, do they have to go through double?
Double secret probation.
Yeah. It's common sense throwing it out there because it's gonna happen.
What do you mean it's,
Because to take a day on one of those protected days, you have to
So like
have
on,
the day before Christmas.
Day before
the day before Christmas, we have a snow day?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be, they could be, yeah. It's not a voluntary leave.
yes, they can.
I got it. I was like,
Because to me, that's common sense, but sometimes what's common sense to me isn't common sense. to others.
Robin will probably just cancel school and tell everybody to stay
Okay,
home.
now, here's the thing, I just turned around to Dr. Newhart and said, just declare it every time and everybody gets paid, but the opposite of that is, you don't have snow days, they don't declare it, and you go to school, so, you know?
Right. Well,
Global
kind of
warming's
muddied the
taking
water.
place. We're not gonna have any snow days as it is.
70 degrees in November, we're fine.
Tomorrow. Okay,
So there's still obviously some discussion about whether the policy is right, but do we all understand what the policy currently is? Okay, all right, that's my goal, we'll keep it at that. Job security. Julie, tell us what you wanted to discuss about that.
Well, our department, the Nutrition Services Department, we have a concern, and it's important to us, and we feel it's important to the students. As you all know, we were outsourced to a food management company for a short time until the beginning of last year. Nothing like that had ever happened before, and what caused it was bad management and poor decisions. We're back to being self-operated now, and we're doing very well with our director, Leah. The students are getting choices they like to eat, and employee morale has risen greatly. We've made some changes this year that put us in a better condition financially than the department has been since OPA was here. As a department, we care very deeply about our students and our mission with this district. We know what we do each day plays a vital role in the lives and the learning of the students. This is what we want. We want to be assured that we have the support of the district and the outsourcing of our department won't happen again. Since that experience, it weighs very heavily on the minds of all of us. It was a bad time for the students and the staff alike. We had the support during that difficult time, and we had the support of a lot of you, and we appreciated that so very much. As we move forward, we ask that we would be provided a written document that states that we will stay self-operated for a minimum of 5 years.
I'm going to give you just my opinion, Julie,
Okay.
and chime in. I meet with these two regularly. Dr. Newhart and I meet more than he cares to. There has been no talk from anybody about outsourcing anything. From a legal standpoint, I would not want to give any department a letter that says, hey, for 5 years, we can't be outsourced. The board always has that right with the classified group if they choose to outsource. Leah's retiring in a year and a half. If they hire me to take over, things go downhill, we might deserve to be outsourced. Okay, so I guess I would just say there's been no talk at the board level about outsourcing anybody. They appreciate what you guys do. You guys do a fantastic job. You form relationships with those kids that other people can't because of the role that you have. So, I mean, I would not, and board members correct me if you don't feel this way, but I just don't think any document of that type would be wise.
I can assure you that we're not looking to outsource food service. Dr. Kraus is correct. To go out on a limb and provide a written document, I don't know if that would be wise to bind the board in that aspect 5 years down the road. But I can assure you right now that we're not looking to outsource food service.
Okay. And if we did that for one classified group, we'd be seeing the secretaries bringing it, and this bringing it, and that bringing it. And so I really believe our legal counsel would say not a wise thing for you to do. But Dr. Kraus and Dr. Newhart are right, and I think Lori would agree with me, that's not even in our sphere of reference.
Well, we want to get it out there because we were absolutely blindsided.
I understand that.
This is our life's work. This is my 21st year, and we put everything. This is our career. This is how we make our living, and it's really important to us and the kids too.
I think the real concern I'm hearing is the fact that you think that there still exists an atmosphere that broad brushstroke will be taken again. And that's what concerns me underlying what you just said. Right. And that would be my takeaway from all this. I have to agree. We can't really guarantee any segment, whether it's professional technology, nutrition, or whatever, in my opinion, coming from the private sector, that's ludicrous. Because you have your balance sheet. Even in the public sector, you have your balance sheet. But that's my big concern, is the mental state and the morale state that you have carryover here. We need to do something about that.
Well, the issue that we saw happen was they were set up for failure.
Yeah.
It was clearly set up for failure. And so then when the failure obviously occurred, they took it on the chin and had very little input on it. They had no input on the decisions that were made that were clearly setting them up to be outsourced.
Yes.
And then the next group came in and swept in like a miracle worker when it clearly wasn't.
Yes.
And they had everything on the outs, and that was very difficult. And so they do have a huge problem still with trust, and understandably, it's like a
That's
bad
very-
marriage.
Thank you. Yeah, very well put.
And how long did that last, that
Very
flip to
well
open?
put.
18 months.
Yes, 18
That was a
months.
proven failure then?
Yeah.
So you're,
Yes.
actually, you've got a lot of
We're-
evidence on your side that you're valued and you're gonna stay.
Yes, and we're doing much better financially, well, Mr. Metz.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're very pleased with what is happening, and
Thank
we
you.
hear a lot of good things.
Thank you.
In fact, I met with Leah down in her office last week, and, expressed that
Yes.
sentiment exactly.
Yes.
Now, does that say we're not still monitoring it? No, we are. I mean, Leah knows that. I mean.
We have to.
She's doing,
We're all
well, I
doing
think
it.
we monitor everything.
have
Right.
to.
She's fantastic.
Is
and
there, is there anything you're hearing, like, is there a rumor that you've heard, or like, is there anything that's making you nervous
Pam's
right
shaking
now
her head
that we
yes.
need to
So-
address?
Well,
Or that needs
you
to be
just
addressed?
hear people here and there, yeah, they want to outsource you, again.
But where's that coming from?
I don't know.
Is it out of fear, or?
Is it,
From the public, and there's been rumors at the Southside Festival. They came up to, we had a booth there from one of our little committees, local chapter that we have, and they came up to our workers, and supposedly they were friends with some board members, and they let us know that. Oh, okay.
Basically, what they said was, they asked me how I felt about working for Airmark next year.
Working for who?
So that's coming from a board member's friend.
when you've been through something like that,
Oh,
it
yeah.
just,
That's the first time I've heard it.
So if you're having a Christmas party
I
with
didn't
your
even know
group,
what
I know
that
Pam,
was.
you said at the beginning of the year you guys all got
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
I'm so sorry that I
I don't know
didn't
that
know
they
that.
would
I'd like
do
to be
it, but
invited
it's-
to that next year as a board member.
Yes, I talked
To
to Leah.
encourage
We
you.
do our all-staff meeting that first Friday. It'll be August 11th.
I'll get it.
Yes.
But, you know, if you need Dr. Uhart to come, or Dr. Kraus, or
That would
Lori, or
work.
myself to say, you
That'd
know
be
what,
awesome.
guys, that's not in our plan.
It's not coming from the administration.
It's not coming from the administration, and right now, it's not coming
Not at
from
all.
board as a
I've
whole,
not
and we're
heard
no
that
good
one
unless
single
we're
item
7
from a
people.
board member.
One board
Because if we
member's
were gonna
wrote.
outsource, it'd be coming
It
from
has
you
to be all
first.
7.
Yes.
Well, that's why I asked, I wanted to know, like,
No,
where
I
that fear
don't.
was coming
Rumors
from.
public
Yeah,
that we
okay.
hear from it,
Yeah.
so it just, and,
That is
you know,
not something
we would
that's-
just wanna make sure.
it was
No.
a traumatic time, it really was. I mean, it affected lives.
And we appreciate your feedback on that, and I dislike fighting windmills, just like those rumors, as Todd knows.
Yeah.
How long ago was this?
All right, the beginning of 15, when they came back.
No, I mean, this rumor,
Oh,
Sounds like
since
that's
like,
the beginning.
yeah,
That
even
was,
till
October 21st.
October 20th, that weekend.
okay, so
Like,
this
I think you
hasn't
can
had a long time to
confidently-
fester,
yeah.
but that's something that should come
No,
right up
and it's
and go
not-
through
no,
the chain
right,
of
well,
command and be brought to senior administration and at
And
least
that's
air it out.
why, right,
Yeah.
and that's why.
Well,
it-
yeah, when people are hearing rumors like that, come to the source, because we have no
Well, It's not
idea.
the first rumor we heard.
I mean,
Should have.
Well, I think you can go back to your
Anybody with
people
brothers.
confidently now and
Okay.
tell them,
Yes.
there's no hint of that at the administrative or board level. And these are the people that make the decision.
I think an important part of this, to heal this, would be a strong statement by the district as to their success. We've seen articles in the paper that they pursued cafeteria workers and they pursued the story of their success. Now it's time for the district to step up and actually shine a light on it and say, this is a tremendously successful program. Because I go to all the board meetings, Eric and I do it, and so does that, and MSTA, at least and Melissa, but we hear people say, how's food service doing? We report out, but we don't ever hear anything come back of like, man, that's outstanding. My school, the kids are getting, thanks to Leah, they're getting a free breakfast and a free lunch.
Yeah.
the kids in it. Not only that, it's not that garbage that Opus sold them that they would pick up and throw in the trash.
They would, yeah.
I mean, and all that stuff, if we want to heal this as a district, the district itself needs to come forward and shine a spotlight on it and say, here it is. And I don't think that's come forward so far.
No, it hasn't.
I would
And
agree.
I would
Okay,
appreciate
well,
that.
please, if there are rumors, please come to the source and ask. Because the way,
We all
God
have
only
emails.
knows where those rumors come from
Right.
and why they're started, but come to the source and ask before freaking out.
Okay.
And just on a personal note, that's one of the reasons I ran for the board last spring.
Very good.
Was-
Well, and this is
Julie, you
good
good
to where, yes, to where we do get to know each other and we do feel comfortable speaking to each other and, because it hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts.
It's scary.
But it's, yeah, not only that, it is very scary. It affects lives.
In St. Joseph, rumors are most people's reality.
Yes.
All
Did
right,
we
that
already
we're
do
not gonna
the-
solve tonight.
I know we're not. I mean, it's difficult.
And I don't know that I agree with that.
Did we already do the begin prioritization?
Yes, we did that.
We did that.
Okay, let's move on. I want to get us out of here as soon as possible. On the PTO policy discussion, I just want to, I think I sent this out to everybody. I just want to give you a brief overview of what we at the board and district level have been talking about and why. And then this will be a major topic for next meeting. I'll give you a brief overview. We'll talk about next time, and then we'll disband. If anybody would like to stay after and ask more questions about this, I'd be glad to, but I don't want to really do it at a big group level right now. GCBDA and GDBDA, the PTO policies. Philosophically, and this is, I'll take the blame for this, and I've been talking with the board members about this. Philosophically, I think PTO gives a wrong, or gives an unhealthy view of the benefit of people being in the classroom or being at their job, whatever it happens to be. In the private sector, PTO, I know I have two kids that both work in the private sector, and PTO means to them, I take off any day that I have available for whatever I want, no questions asked. I don't think that's good for education. Every study out there shows that when a teacher's gone from the classroom, when kids have a different environment than they're used to, student learning suffers. Does that mean that teachers should never be gone? No. You're human just like everybody else. Everybody's going to get sick sometimes. You're going to have family things sometimes. But I think the idea of PTO, I think, lessens the view of your importance in what you do. I just want to go real quickly through this and highlight some of the things. Toward the bottom of the first page, there's two lines. It says misusing the district's time off policies, etc. That comes right out of the employee handbook. That's not new language. I just inserted it in there. We'd like to change PTO to employee leave. On what's my page 3, it's table 1. If you are looking on your computer, table 1, one of the things that we would like to discuss, I feel like use it or lose it days are contrary to our mission. I think we say to kids all the time, come to school, come to school, come to school. You can't learn if you're not here. But yet we're telling every employee, hey, if you need to be gone, well, you know, if you don't want to be penalized for losing these 2 days, you got to be gone twice. Yeah. I think, you know, we had talked about this and would like to look at carrying over all the days that you're allotted so that there are no use or lose days. On the next page, it's my page 4, it's where it talks about PTO allowed absences. It starts that A through J list. Another thing that I feel like is not employee friendly that easily could be is right now if you're gone it's either a half day or a full day. We would like to start tracking that, like if you have a dental cleaning, typically that takes an hour. If you do that now, you're going to be assessed a half a day. What we'd like to do, there would be no absences of less than an hour, but anything over an hour would be tracked to the nearest 15 minutes. So if you are gone to the dentist and it takes an hour and a half, you're an hour and a half deducted from your leave, not 4 hours, or 3 3/4, whatever happens to be. We feel like that's going to encourage people to do your business, get back to work. And that's where we need to have you, is in your classroom, at your station, whatever it is that you do. So that way, you know, if you're really doing an hour errand, you could do that 8 times and still have only used one PT or one EL day. Okay, so we feel like that will encourage people to do their business, get back to work, and also it makes a whole lot more sense.
How would you cover that? I mean, how are you gonna bring in a sub for an hour, or?
Well, I think principals would need to make a decision if you tell them, you know, I think I'm gonna be gone 2.5, maybe 3 hours, they're gonna have to make a decision, well, can we cover that internally, or do we need to bring a sub in? We have it in the additional pay rates now, both for elementary and secondary, that if you have to double up, you're gonna be compensated. So I feel like that's gonna come down to administrative decision. I know it's hard to get subs for less than a full day. But this way, if somebody, you know, if you're gone for if you take a half a day for a 1 hour thing and we can't find a sub, we've got 4 hours where somebody's having to cover your classes. If you're back in an hour.
Yeah, and if you're gonna keep that cover time, the pay, that's okay, that's all right.
Yeah, and so like if a person, like teachers get 10 days, that's 75 hours. So next year, if we were to do this, you wouldn't be given 10 days, you'd be given 75 hours.
Right.
And things would be tracked by up to the quarter hour, whatever's the closest quarter hour.
We are given 12 days.
12 days.
Yeah, I was just, because
I know, I'm just saying.
He's cutting days here.
I couldn't do 7.5 times 12 in my head.
No, I understand. Now, does this mean that we're all gonna go to the clocking in, clocking out? Because I don't know how you track this without clocking in.
You can track it
and
through
clocking
ASOP.
out.
You can, hourly? Is it just something you have to change?
Because I made sure.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. No, it wouldn't involve timesheets.
Just when, you just have to log the time in ASOP when you
Yes.
are, okay.
Right, you log in ASOP. Okay,
Oh, and the hourly people have to log it in the time clock also.
Right.
yes.
Yes,
Yeah, that
sorry.
wouldn't-
Certified staff should
Yeah,
be.
that's it.
it
Yeah,
wouldn't
I was
change.
talking about the teachers.
All right, on what's my next page, section G, letter G. I took out funeral because I feel like that's covered in the bereavement policy. Defined immediate family. K, the big change is, I think, because we're going to track personal time to the nearest 15 minutes, it is justifiable to go back from 3 days back to 2. The other side of that is described in policy L. At several districts that I've been at, people had the opportunity, you know, we had, well, I do want to go back. Letter I was the absolute bane of my existence, and I want to get rid of that.
Explain that.
Everything became personal business. My son is playing football in New York, and I need to take Thursday and Friday to travel. Game's on Saturday, I'll be back on Tuesday, that's personal business. No, that's a vacation. Okay, is it important to see your son play? Yes, if you have your personal days, use them. If you don't, then it should be docked.
What about like taxes, banking business, insurance? You know, the things you physically cannot do,
Right.
closing on a house,
Those-
things you physically cannot do.
Those would fall under the personal leave in this instance.
So you'd have to take your part of your 2 personal days to go close on your house.
Or license your car.
Yeah, that's, if we go with this as
So if you have already used those 2 personal days, and then at the beginning of the year, and then I decide I'm gonna buy a house in May, and my closing date is before the end, so then is it a docked day according to this policy?
probably yes, as it's written. Can we, let me get through it, and then if anybody who wants to stay, I'll stay here till 9 if you want.
You can also schedule a closing of a house after school.
It's true.
Yeah. You can also get your car license after school.
I did mine.
Okay,
but-
so anyway,
That's true.
reining things back in here.
Up until 5:30.
Letter L.
Letter L.
Okay, let's look at letter L, folks. Because we're reducing one personal day, we'd like to reward for longevity. That says basically that if you're here 10 or more years, once every 5 years if you wanted to convert leave days into personal days for those once-in-a-lifetime trips that we eliminated the wording about. So let's say in year 11, it's your 25th anniversary and you want to go on a week-long cruise. You would have 2 personal days. If you have, well, if you've been here that long, you've probably got a lot of days in your bank. You could take up to 6 leave days, convert them into 3 personal days, and then if you wanted to be gone an entire week on a cruise, it would all be paid as personal leave. If you didn't need 3 days, you only needed 1, you'd take 2 days and make it into 1. 4 days into 2, 6 days into 3. And you could do that every 5 years. That would allow for those special types of events.
So, if I don't have anything in 11, but year 13, I need to take something, I take it 13, but then I have to wait 5 more years to do that again.
That's the way it's written. There would be, we
Okay.
could certainly discuss that.
Okay.
If you started in 13, it would be 18, 23.
Right, there's just clarification, it's just,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be year 11, it can be whatever year after
Right.
X amount of years.
Anytime after
That's good
10.
clarification.
Yeah, anytime after 10.
Well, you're talking about the conversion ratio, the 2 for 1, I mean, that's something here.
That makes the district break even. On those days.
And that's like in private sector, that's, like my husband's a fireman, that's what they do, 2 for 1, you know, with their loggers, with their union.
Yeah.
You see that a lot in the business world.
Even at the very step 1, column 1, a teacher makes about $200 a day. Trade in 2 sick days that they, and the teachers we're talking about are gonna be far over on the salary schedule and down because they've been here at least 10 years. It would minimize the financial impact
Okay,
for the
that's
district.
reasonable.
On page 8, there's a pretty good paragraph in red there. Depending on how the calendar year falls, sometimes there are more than 260 work days, sometimes there are less. Depends on if July 1st and June 30th are both on weekends, that changes it, if they're both weekdays. But what this tries to clear up is that every year the 260 employee calendar will have 260 paid work days. You won't get shorted on the years that it's on weekends, you won't have more work days on the ones that it is. That's like this year, November 22nd is a unpaid holiday. That's because of the number of work days in this particular fiscal year. Next year it's going to be different. So that just is so that the 260 work calendar is always 260 paid days. The 4-day work week, yeah, we talked about that, I think, before a little bit.
Thank you.
Okay, that's a brief synopsis. I would like to just briefly talk about next time. We'll really hit this hard. Get me your tally sheets. I'll synthesize and send them out. If you have agenda items that you would like on for next time, send them to me. If you want to stay and talk, like I said, I'll stay till 9, not afterwards, but I'm good till then, I think. Any other comments for the good of the order before we dismiss?
Can we clarify how we're gonna vote on this before we go? I mean, so that's why I don't wanna make sure you get the same stuff back in the sense of maybe we need to have a common form that here's how we want you to score it. Pick out the ones, 1 through 4, and how we're gonna do
You're
this.
talking about the itemized.
Yes, yes,
You wanna go
so,
1 through 4 on everything, right? But you said the ones that we put a 1 on could only equal up to.
Okay, here, let me try and see how this works in my mind. Your minds may work differently. Think of it as golf. One is low scores are the best. So a 1, I'll equate to 4 points. A 3 or a 2 I'll equate to 3. A 3 to 2, and a 4 to 1. All right. Now this is not like a binding vote. I'm not going to say, okay, well these things got the most votes. That's what we're doing. That'll just give us a place to start discussion. If something is consistently ranked 1s by everybody, we'll know, hey, this is important. This is something we probably need to move forward with. If something's consistently ranked 4s, then we'll say, this is something we'll talk about next year maybe. Okay, so that's kind of how I envisioned that working.
So go through each line item.
Through each line item. Yeah, if you just, on your spreadsheet, just type in a 1, 2, 3, or 4.
with a total of 1.2.
A total,
Plus
For
those
what?
red ones,
Right, our total ones are 1.2 million.
plus the red. If you
Well-
keep the
If you
red.
keep the red.
If you keep
Yeah, if you
red.
keep the red, unless you switch for a red, you gotta back it out.
If you pull something out of the red, that's fine.
And the red's higher.
But you gotta add
You'll,
it back in.
you'll be pulling something else in to take its
And
place.
there's two things you can't pull out of the red, you said, right?
Yeah, the only
last
two I feel like we shouldn't pull out of the red
No,
are
wasn't the
the
last, no.
PTO buyback and the horizontal movement.
The horizontal.
Those are basically board policy that we're gonna do that.
We're pulling that.
Any other clarification
So
questions
we're
on
ranking, we're
that?
ranking every line item here.
Every line item should have a 1, 2, 3, or 4, and hopefully your ones total 3 million-ish. I mean, it's not gonna come out exactly, obviously. Give
So I'm
yourself,
telling every administrator, right? Give me your.
if you have information, if you feel like you have a good finger on the pulse of the administration, you can fill it out yourself. If you wanna ask for input, you certainly can.
I'll probably.
And like I said, this will just be a starting point for our final discussion.
That would help, that'll clarify.
All right, let's call it good. Thank you very much. We got a lot done. Any of you who want to stay and talk PTO, I love it. I'll talk to you.